On a storm-battered rock in the North Atlantic, 3 men tended a lighthouse and then, one December night, they simply ceased to exist. The Flannan Isles lie about 20 miles west of the Isle of Lewis, at the very edge of the Scottish Outer Hebrides. They are barren, wind-scoured, and almost impossible to land on. For centuries, sailors called them the Seven Hunters and gave them a wide berth, whispering that they were cursed. In 1899, a lighthouse was finally built on the largest island, Eilean Moor, to guide ships through those treacherous waters. Within a year, it would become the center of one of the strangest vanishings in maritime history. The lighthouse was manned by a rotating crew of keepers, hardened men accustomed to isolation and brutal weather. In December 1900, 3 of them were stationed on the rock: James Duckett, the experienced principal keeper, Thomas Marshall, a steady second assistant, and Donald MacArthur, an occasional keeper standing in for a colleague who had fallen ill. These were not careless men. They knew the sea, they knew the danger, and they knew that their single most important duty was never, under any circumstances, to let the light go out. On the night of December 15, a passing steamer, the Archtor, sailed through the waters near the Flannan Isles on its way to Leith. Its crew noted something deeply unsettling: the lighthouse was dark. No beam swept the horizon. No warning cut through the December murk. The ship reported the failure once it reached port, but with the holidays and a backlog of messages, the report was not acted upon quickly. Out on the rock, the light stayed cold and silent, and no one yet knew that anything was truly wrong. A relief vessel, the Hesperus, was due to sail to the island to swap crews and deliver supplies. Bad weather delayed it for days, and it wasn't until December 26, the day after Christmas, that the ship finally reached Eilean Moor. As it approached, the captain expected the usual signals: a flag raised, provision boxes waiting on the landing, and one of the keepers watching from the cliffs. Instead, there was nothing. The flagpole was bare. No figure moved along the rocks. An eerie stillness hung over the entire island. A crewman named Joseph Moore was sent ashore. He climbed the steep steps carved into the rock, calling out as he went, but no voice answered. The entrance gate and the main door were closed. Inside the lighthouse, the air was cold and empty. The clock had stopped. The beds were unmade. And in the kitchen, Moore found the last traces of ordinary life frozen in place: a meal, a chair, and an atmosphere of sudden, total absence. The 3 keepers were simply gone. When the search of the island began, the details only deepened the puzzle. 2 sets of oilskin waterproof coats were missing, suggesting 2 men had gone outside into the weather. But the 3rd set remained behind, meaning one keeper had apparently rushed out into a fierce Atlantic storm without any protection at all. For men who lived and breathed the rules of survival on that rock, it was almost unthinkable. The keeper's logbook offered tantalizing, unsettling clues. Entries described days of ferocious storms and, strangely, noted that one of the men had been crying and that another, normally calm, had grown unusually quiet. One line even claimed the men had prayed together. To some, this hinted at fear, tension, perhaps even a breakdown. But there was a problem. On the days the log described terrible storms, the weather records from nearby stations reported the seas as relatively calm. The storms in the logbook may never have happened. On the western landing, investigators found evidence of astonishing violence from the sea. A supply crate stored an estimated 110 feet above sea level had been torn apart. Iron railings were bent and twisted. A rope lay strewn across the rocks, and a huge block of stone had been dislodged. Whatever force had struck that landing, it had reached heights that should have been far beyond the ocean's grasp. The official investigation, led by Robert Muirhead of the Northern Lighthouse Board, reached a sober conclusion. He believed that all 3 men had gone down to the western landing to secure equipment before an approaching swell, and that an enormous, freak wave had swept them from the rocks and dragged them into the sea. It was a plausible, tragic explanation. Yet it left uncomfortable questions unanswered, chiefly, why an experienced keeper would break the cardinal rule and abandon the lighthouse, leaving no one to mind the light. In the vacuum of certainty, other theories bloomed. Some suggested one keeper had gone mad in the isolation, that a fatal argument had ended in tragedy on the cliffs. Others proposed that a rogue wave had claimed one man, and that the remaining 2, rushing to save him, were caught by a second surge. A few pointed to the island's old reputation, the ancient curse of the 7 hunters, and whispered of forces the modern mind refuses to name. Over the decades, the mystery seeped into folklore, poetry, and song. A famous poem imagined the relief crew finding an overturned chair and a table set for a meal that no one ever ate, details that grew more dramatic with each retelling. The truth, as investigators recorded it, was quieter but no less haunting: 3 capable men, alone on a rock in the ocean, who stepped outside into the December gloom and never came back. No bodies were ever recovered. No farewell was ever found. Today the Flannan Isles Lighthouse still stands, automated now, its light controlled from far away. The island is empty again, home only to seabirds and the endless wind. Ships pass safely through waters that once swallowed 3 men without a sound. We know the storm was fierce. We know the sea can reach impossible heights on that rock. But we will never truly know what happened in those final moments on the western landing, whether it was a wave, a fall, a fatal panic, or something the records simply cannot hold. The lighthouse keeps its secret, and the ocean keeps its dead.